first things first. Finish this sentence for me. March Madness 2021 will be
one of the biggest handles ever in the history of the tournament.
Ooh, I love to hear it. I love to hear it. Oh man, what kind of what's jumping out at you? You look at the lines, right? Is there anything that surprises you in any of these matchups?
No, I've been making the lines a long time on these games, so there's really not much out there that does. There's some big favorites, and of course, there's some tight games. UConn being one of those games. So that's not unusual for me to see. And then there's some teams in there that first timers in there or haven't been there much. The one thing that's a little different this year is that the Thursday games, they're play-in games, first four in. Usually we start the tournament on Thursday, and the tournament continues to Monday, which we never had that happen before. At least not the first two rounds. Final game's always on a Monday, but not the first two rounds.
Yeah, because I was gonna say I'm doing organizing a little thing with people from work, and the playing games are usually Wednesday, right?
Correct. Tuesday, Wednesday. Actually, two games each day. And then the Tuesday games play Thursday. The Wednesday games get plugged in on Friday. But it's a little bit different this year. And hey, you know what? We're just happy to have the tournament. It's isolated in one location. We're glad it's back. And, I applaud the NCAA for, doing the best they can.
Yes. And there's Gonzaga, a pretty heavy favorite, no?
Yeah, real heavy favorite. The Zags went 26-0 this year, and a remarkable year. You can't take anything away from them. You could say they played in a weak conference, but they won some pretty good big games too. They beat like Kansas and three other teams that were ranked in the top 25. So and it's not like they're winning by 4 or 6 points. They're actually winning by substantial margins.
Right. And then talk a little bit about UConn here. Like, are they our region? I guess they're close. Do you think? And I thought it was kind of a disappointing Big East tournament for them. But what do you think about UConn's chances? Are they like a dark horse here, maybe?
Well, their chances to win the whole thing are it's going to be a tough road. They certainly, deserve to be in the tournament, and it's their first time in since 2016, which is hard to believe. This team was a staple in the tournament. Good season. I've been 15-7, and then played well on the road. They were 7-3 at home, 6-3 on the road, which you like to see for a tournament team. You like to see a team that goes on the road and wins. 11-6 in conference play. Had a good, 5-6, won 5 of the 6 down the stretch. I guess if there's any concerns in there for me is that they lost to Creighton 3 times. Lost to Creighton in the semis, lost to Creighton twice before. The team they're playing, Maryland, was only 16-13, but they come from a really tough conference. The Big Ten, where they beat Illinois and Purdue. The next matchup is not easy for either team. Alabama's the number 2 seed, and Alabama had a remarkable year, my God, and went all the way through the SEC, won that tournament. So it's not an easy road for Connecticut to win it all. I think it's one of those things where you take it one game at a time, and let's get the first one where they're a 3-point favorite over Maryland, and then let's see what happens, and after that, and we'll prepare for the second team.
And they're in the bottom left region there. Correct me if I'm wrong. Why am I picturing, and because I think it's going to happen, so it's definitely not going to happen. That's usually how it works for me. I'm just the jinx. But why am I picturing a Alabama LSU SEC championship rematch in the Elite Eight down in that bottom left region there?
You could be right. Hey, maybe you have vision on what you see is going to happen. I wouldn't dispute that. So, that's what filling out brackets is all about. Speaking of brackets, Justin, we have a bracket contest. It's $100 It's $100 to enter, and we're paying $1 million to the first place winner, and then another million to all the winners below that, paying down 1,500 ways and prizes. So if you feel that, I think you should enter, and I think anybody that's listening should enter with your selections.
Yes, I love it. No Coach K, no Calipari, right? No Duke. What do you think?
Well, no team's bigger than the tournament. No Duke, no Kentucky. The Blue Bloods are not in it this year, and they did not have successful years. Duke had an outside shot to get in, but they were taken down by COVID in the semis, so they never did have their chance to get in. But it's just not. It's one of those crazy years in college basketball where some teams didn't pan out, others did have successful seasons and got to the tournament for the first time in a while.
And what do you think about and because we're based in Norwalk, Connecticut, so we wanted to get Fairfield in there. We were pulling for them. They made it to the championship there, but they came up a little short. But Hartford, right, a team that gets in there for the first time ever, they're in Connecticut, and then you also have Rutgers as well, gets in it for the first time in a while. Steve Peichel's a Connecticut guy, used to be a UConn guy. What do you think about those two teams in particular, kind of new faces, maybe filling the void of the familiar faces not being there?
Well, Harvard's going to have a rough time, and it's great for them to be at the tournament. Only, I think they were 11-8, weren't they? I don't know. It wasn't a great record, but they're a 20. We opened that game, Baylor, 24.5-point favorite. We're up to 26. So right now, the bettors are siding with the Baylor Bears. So 26 points, big favorite, one of the biggest favorites on the board over anyone. I think Rutgers, though, is capable of beating Clemson. They're battle tested. They played in a tough conference, and they held their own there. They played very well. So they're only a small favorite. That game opened up Clemson won or Pick'em right around that area. Now Rutgers is the small favorite at 1.5. So I can see Rutgers winning that game. Rutgers could advance. Now, of course, advancing means you get to play, most likely, you get to play a Houston team who's the number 2 seed, and we'll see. One at a time, like I say.
Yeah, and Rutgers favored in that, as a 10. Some people look at that and they're like, oh, why are they favored? But you're right about, any team that's coming from the Big Ten. I mean, that was definitely the best conference in college basketball this year, wouldn't you say?
I think so. Yeah, from top to bottom, every night a tough game. I think they're glad to get away from each other. One thing about the Big Ten is maybe where the tournament's taking place, which is in Indiana, the state of Indiana, Indianapolis area. They're familiar with that area. Purdue especially. Purdue's going to get a home game, and the rest of those teams don't have to travel far. So I think there's a little advantage to playing in that area for the Big Ten.
Nice. What's the key to a perfect bracket?
There is no perfect bracket. No one does a perfect bracket. It's not impossible, but it's nearly impossible. So when you're filling out your bracket in our contest, just do the best you can, do some handicapping, look for some upsets, because there's certainly going to be some, and then try to get the right matchups in at least 1 or 2 regions. That's the important part.
Yes. What's your advice for people, people who may, a lot of casual fans end up taking part in brackets all over. What's your advice to those people in this year's bracket?
My advice to anyone that's new to wagering and playing brackets is to go and play our free pools. We have a free survivor pool. We're paying a winner $1 million. If there's any upsets in the first 2 rounds, which there will be, we will select random winners and pay $100,000 for those who entered. Plus, we have so many other free pools. So my suggestion is to dabble in the free pools on DraftKings, especially in Connecticut where, sports wagering is not legal yet. Of course, you can travel across the border and play on your app, and in other jurisdictions. But in Connecticut itself, play the free pools, and in other jurisdictions where sports legal wagering is not legal yet. And I say yet because it's coming, Justin. It's just a matter of time.
Right, right. Outstanding. What's a team? Maybe people aren't. Maybe what's a team people are overlooking this year?
There's somebody. I think you're asking about where are some of those upsets going to reside, right?
Hmm.
Or at least the first round. We got teams like Villanova who, uh, you know, major player injured and for them. They're not a typical Villanova season. Playing against a Winthrop team who just had a crazy good season. That's a spot certainly to look at. They could be dangerous. Arkansas is playing a team like Colgate, also a very good team, Colgate, that's probably being overlooked. Now, when I say overlooked, I'm talking about game one, possibly game two, but like I say, take them one at a time. And a team like Loyola Chicago, they're playing Georgia Tech. They've been there before. You remember Sister Jean, don't you, Justin? Justin, I think Sister Jean now is 102 years old, and I know she'll be watching her Loyola Chicago team, and they're really good this year again.
God, their defense is so good. I mean, just smothering. I wonder how Georgia Tech will play. That's going to be a good game. That's going to be one of my favorite games, I think, to start. Wow, this was great. I'm trying to think. We hit UConn, right? We hit some of the region. We hit the bracket pools. We hit the. Trying to think. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on here?
Yeah, there's one last thing I want to touch on is, the men are playing basketball again, but the women will be playing again too. And we will have the women's games up starting with the Sweet 16. So we all know that, Connecticut are basketball fans, and certainly women basketball fans, aren't they?
Yep, exactly. 100%. What do you think about that tournament?
I love the women's tournament. Always have. Watch it just like I do the men's. And it's less teams to begin with, but certainly a fun tournament just like the men's. And they usually try to fit it in. I haven't seen the TV times yet. They try to fit it in when the men aren't playing, so it does get some TV exposure.
Give me one, not multiple. Give me one upset lock for the first round in the men's tourney.
Woo, boy, you're putting me on the spot, aren't you?
I need the lock.
One upset. I'm gonna give you. Give me a second here to look at it. My one upset that I like a lot for the first round is Cal Santa Barbara over Creighton. Now you're certainly familiar with seeing Creighton. They beat Connecticut 3 times this year, but Santa Barbara is a tough team that a lot of people don't know about, and hopefully Creighton will be prepared for them, because if they're not, it could be a shocker.
Yes. I know the way Creighton maybe trended down a little bit and Santa Barbara trending up. I love it. I love it. God, someone was trying to tell me Ohio over who are they playing? Virginia? Someone was trying to tell me that. They like that.
Well, there's a big move on that game. We opened up Virginia 10.5 point favorite. That game is now down to 7.5. And remember, the Virginia team had COVID, almost pulled out of the tournament, and so probably hasn't had the amount of practice time that you normally get for this tournament. So I think that's one of the reasons for that move.
That's good. Wow, I didn't think about that. Dang it. When you look back on all your years, right? In the business and the legendary status, being an expert, is there maybe one gambling story or one pick that you went against the odds, you win? Is there one story you look back on and think of every time you think about you have a favorite story?
Well, I have a lot of stories, and a lot of them had to do with the customers that would be in the room themselves. I worked at Wynn for my last 13 years in the bricks and mortar business before I came to DraftKings. And I used to hang out down in the room a lot, especially during the tournament. when some of the games were going on, just to feel the action and the enthusiasm from the customer base, and it was crazy. And I remember the Virginia UMBC upset, where Virginia was a 20.5 point favorite, and lost the game by 20. I remember Duke losing to Lehigh as a 2 seed, and those are the things I remember, being down in that room and watching those teams win those games, especially the UMBC game. They put that game away, but the other games were tight at the stretch, and it was down to the last bucket, and the room just exploding when these dogs won the game. So that's the feeling I'll always remember from March Madness games.
God, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time.